Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode number 4 of the Lyman Boat podcast. Here with Croc in the man cave. How are you this morning?
Lyman man cave. I'm doing just great. You?
I am fantastic. It's finally beautiful weather out. We have a break in the heat and humidity this morning.
Yes, we do. Finally.
So this is going to be one of our pre-recorded shows. But if you have any questions on the show, we encourage you to reach back. Also, please like us or subscribe. Help us keep this thing going.
Oh, yeah. You have to subscribe.
You got to subscribe. So today, I got to get a drink of coffee. It's early here. Today we're going to get into the next chapter.
Yes, we are. This is one I know you've been looking forward to.
I have. I've been World War II history interests me, and I think it's relevant. My grandfather served in World War II, and my dad was actually a young child during the war, but he lived through the war over in Europe. So, pretty interesting stuff.
Yes, it is. And Lyman certainly did their part, along with all the other companies across the U.S. to support the war effort and get supplies to Europe and to the Pacific arena. So
there we go.
We're out of the. Just to summarize the last podcast, we're out of the Depression, and what we gain out of that, we've perfected that little 17-foot Islander, and after the war, that's gonna put Lyman on the map. And then in 42, 41, late 41, the war starts, and Lyman wouldn't be awarded a contract until May of 42. So they continued. They were encouraged. Everybody was encouraged to continue their normal manufacturing activities until the War Department could get with them to award them whatever contract they deemed suitable for the facility, manufacturing facility.
So you had Pearl Harbor was December 7th, 41.
Correct.
And then Lyman's first contract was not until May 42.
Which is, 4 months?
Yeah.
Months. So.
Not short, very shortly after.
Yeah. Yep.
So you said something interesting that maybe you can elaborate on. Do you know how they surveyed companies and factories to look at the decision on what they could and could not produce for war effort?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. Any of the boats, they're going to go to Chris Craft, Garwood, Lyman. I think Thompson, Pinyan were in business at the time. So, I mean, that's pretty. Some of the other ones I'm going to touch on when we get into further into the chapter. Some interesting stuff. But Matthews, they were awarded some of the bigger boat contracts because they made bigger boats. Lyman was awarded some of the smaller size boat contracts because they built smaller scale boats.
So the the first contract was for the C-7890?
Yeah, it was for the 33-foot Navy plane rearming boat.
And so what was that purpose?
Actually, it was just a torpedo tender. I think there was either a rack for 4 or 6. I think it was racked for 4, 2 on each side of the center-mounted engine, and they would transport torpedoes, from the shore out to the carriers to rearm the torpedo bombers. Basically, all it was.
That's pretty cool. And they built 10 of those, right? And I think that was their first contract out the gate.
Correct. And of course, now this is going to be the first time that Bill Lyman is going to use plywood for the hull, because this is what the government stipulated.
So I believe the government stipulate a 3/4 inch hull, which was a two-part plywood, right? There was a
Well, they
quarter inch and
quarter
a
inch
half
and a
inch.
half inch glued together with weldwood glue. Now I don't know what the purpose was there. I don't know why they just didn't go 3/4 inch right off the bat. Because the other boats, we're going to find out that they just use 3/4 inch instead of half inch and quarter inch glued together, which to me would have alleviated labor.
I agree. So have you ever worked with that weldwood resin?
Yeah, when I first started working on Lyman's, that's what we used. Before we found out about West System and epoxies, I remember mixing that stuff up a lot.
So that was the precursor to the West system.
Correct.
Interesting.
Actually, that's what Lyman used to glue their planks together. And we'll further, if we get in, we're going to do a segment one night on the tooling of Lyman, and you'll find out how they glued those sections of planks together. And they scarfed two pieces and used weldwood, and then they had actually an electric iron that they applied pressure to the scarf to increase the speed of the cure of the weldwood.
Hmm.
But so Lyman was used to using weldwood, and that's what the Navy called for.
So they had marine grade fur was the
marine grade fur plywood.
So this is then the first boat they're building with plywood.
Well, they'd used plywood before the war, but not for the hulls. They used it for the decks. You remember the last chapter we talked about those painted deck outboards, and those were fir plywood decks, and they had canvas on top, painted canvas on top of them. So they had been using plywood, just not for the hulls. He wasn't convinced that it was going to not fall apart under the water. And
lo and behold, the war effort begins.
yeah, and it wasn't long. He's going to have to build these boats out of fir plywood. So the first thing he did was put together 2-3 outboards with this plywood, and took them out back and sunk them in the marina. And he was going to be fully convinced that it wasn't going to separate.
So did he do that during the war effort?
Absolutely. Probably
prior to?
Well, yeah. I mean, it didn't take long for him to realize that if this plywood held up, it's going to be much, much better for lap straight construction, just due to the fact that you take a piece of straight grain mahogany or cypress and put a line of clinch nails and a screw every fourth nail on that same line. You've weakened that, especially if it's straight grain. Now, for plywood, your half inch probably going to be 5 ply, and it's going to be running crisscross, and it's going to have a much stronger line for the fasteners. And but I don't know. I think every pre-war Lyman that I've got, and I've got a few of them, and there's always one or two planks that are split.
Right.
Just because it's straight grain, solid wood. So the plywood was going to be an excellent alternative to mahogany and cypress as far as construction. So it didn't take him long to sink a couple to make sure it was going to hold together, and then you'll see after the war how many thousands of square feet of the plywood that they went through.
Well, that's why they had the train right outside, right? They bring it in by the train load.
Well, sure, they had a railroad spur out
Railroad
there.
right outside, yeah.
So
that was the first boat they had. That was the first contract.
they built what,
the
10 of
Navy,
them, I believe.
yeah, 10 of them.
Yeah,
80 to 99, right?
right. And
Or 90 to 99.
and production speed was the primary concern. It wasn't about tight fits, good finish, or quality of anything. They had to be put together quickly.
That's true. And then there's an interesting fairly caveat too on how they were paid for these. I thought was fairly interesting where the government gave them so much money at this point, and then if they hit this deadline, they got this bump, and if they hit the delivery deadline, they got the full bump. So they scaled it. The pay scale was really encouraging on time delivery.
Yep.
Yeah. That was getting interesting. All right, so then we get into that was the first contract, and you kind of talk a little bit about in your book that Fred's in the factory right now, and there is another very skilled laborer who'd worked there his entire life.
Well, the war starts. Fred Ween, his son-in-law, had come over from Cleveland. He was operating a dealership over there, and he came over to Cleveland to join Bill in the plant to help him run the plant. His brother Frank retired from his bridge engineering work, and he came to work in the plant as a architect engineer. And then in when did Marino come to work?
He worked there a long time.
Oh yeah.
Until his death, right? He worked there.
He migrated over here in 1925. Okay, and then he was a skilled woodworker, and he was working on houses. Then he went to work for the Sandusky Boat Company. That was another small boat company. But in 1930, he came over to go to work for Bill Lyman, and he was there till 34 years till he died in 1964. Finally, he worked his way up to plant superintendent, and that's how his son Tony, actually grew up in the plant. And we'll talk about Tony, I think, in the next chapter about how many years he spent there, and Bill Lyman and his dad became steadfast friends, and so they've got the four main characters in the leadership roles at the plant with 60 some employees that would soon grow to 100.
Yeah, and there was an interesting thing you brought up about how one of the things they looked at was there were a lot of skilled woodworkers, immigrant woodworkers working in different fields at the time within the area, maybe an auto production line, and that he actually was able to bring those people into the company and add a skilled labor force already in tune to working with wood.
I can remember Tony telling me that his dad sponsored, several Italian immigrant families to come over and work at the plant. So we're going to find after the war that there was a large populace of Italian workers in the plant after the war for the mass production on all the stations. So.
Well, they make some pretty nice wood boats in Italy.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But getting back to this second contract. Now this is an interesting contract.
This would be for the Army light rafts, right?
Correct. Actually, just it was more of a pram. I would just call it a flat bottom pram, for lack of a better term. And it was 13 foot by 5 foot, roughly. And I think they were 24 inches deep, I believe. And they were only half inch, or 3/4 inch on the bottom, half inch on the sides, 24 inches deep. And they were designed. They had just a shallow rise in the front, to where they could be hitched together and towed. But when they got to the bridge site, the transoms were absolutely perpendicular, and they would back two of them up, and they had a hitch pin assembly. And I've got the blueprints of these, and it's interesting. They would back them together and just drop two pins through, and now instead of 13 foot, you've got a 26 by 5 foot pontoon that they would lay in line and lay the bridge decking over top for light vehicles and troop movement across the rivers. So, and what's interesting about this is Tony recalls Tony Juvenale. But this was actually the start up to where you get your pattern jig bench router assembly going. This is where you take a template, and the template's like 1/8 of an inch oversized, and then it's put onto a jig that is the exact identical to the piece you're going to make, and then it's run on a bench shaper that's got a rub collar. So as you feed that jig or pattern into that bench shaper head, it hits that rub collar, and you go around, and that piece, every time you put a piece on there, it comes out identical. And
So basically, instead of cutting it perfect to begin with, they're oversized cutting it, putting it to the jig. The
Right.
jig was holding the shape, and they'd
Exactly.
run the route. And now, was that jig already in its orientation for assembly, where they'd put one in?
but every part had a jig assembly like that. So one guy would just sit there and run one part. One guy would cut it oversized, hand it to this guy. He'd put it on the jig and run it on the router and pass it off to the other guys going to install it.
So this is also when they kind of went away from a small team working on a boat from start to finish
Right.
to an actually production assembly line where you had people with specific jobs doing,
And
same thing over and over, but sped it up.
there'd be one guy cutting nothing but the bracing, for the interior of these boats, and somebody else cutting out, the sides, and then they'd pass them on to the crew that was assembling. So, and that's basically what, how they approached everything after the war to mass produce, the Lyman outboards, from 13 to 18 foot.
So I did some math on this one. They had, that contract was given to them. They had to make 500 units between October and December. So basic math here, that's those 3 months is 92 days. Do the math there. You're gonna at 5.4 units a day, and that means 5.4 units a day, and it's 1 unit every 4 hours and 24 minutes in the workday.
No, they were very simplistic. There was nothing to them. So I can see that.
Yeah, that's still pretty quick though.
Well, yeah, but that's the whole idea. All they had to do was float. They didn't have to look like it. And it was just plywood glue and battleship gray paint. But,
Now, were they assembled with any fasteners, or are they just all glued together?
no, they had a little bit of everything. They were using some copper, mostly galvanized. I would say galvanized fastener. Number one, they're cheaper, and number two, these things, believe me, they weren't coming home.
No.
So, just majority of them just put together with.
There might be a few over the pond as flower boxes still now, but that's about it.
Well, I tell you what, if one of the, they could very well be that marine fur holds up.
Yeah.
But its production is speed, 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 and you've got, inspectors in there probably every day, taking account, pressing, and believe me, the government took away contracts. I remember reading Clausen's book on the Colt 45 Auto, 1911 A1. I'm sure you're familiar with that weapon. But there were 5 companies awarded contracts during World War II to make those. It was Colt, Remington Rand, which is another firearm manufacturer, Ithaca, which is another firearms manufacturer, Union Switch and Signal, who built electrical signal components for the railroad, and Singer Sewing Machine. Well, these contracts were allotted 500 pistols at a time, and Singer they couldn't get it, and they sent a team of inspectors in there, and here they're trying to build these things like a sewing machine. Well, boys, it ain't like that. So they let them complete the 500, but they lifted that contract, and the government realized, okay, we need these guys making bomb sights, not 45 1911s. So Singer went from making the 45 autos to making the bomb sights because it's a much more precision operation, and they just left it up to the other four to supply the
Interesting.
40. But it's just speed. We got to get these things out of here.
Yeah,
But
it's remarkable to me the how industrious our country was in a short period of time. The output of
truly was. Rosie the Riveter. I remember we talked about her last night.
yeah, we did, and I was going to look that statistic up, and I didn't find it, so I will get that for you. But I want to say it's something ridiculous. It was like 48 hours or 72 hours from keel laid to launch. They completed.
Oh, the one Liberty boat.
They completed a Liberty ship was like the record time.
Liberty ship, yeah.
Yeah, and they were sinking them just as fast as they could build them. So this was interesting.
Well, hopefully we never have to go through this again, Andy, because we can't even find anybody to flip hamburgers at McDonald's, let alone build anything in this country.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good point. But what's that thing? Something's the nature is the something to necessity. I don't know. I can't. I can't think of it.
Yeah, I can't think.
It's too early.
Yeah,
It's too early, folks. This is a morning recording.
What? It's almost noon, Andy.
Like I said, this is a morning recording. It's Friday morning. This is a summer break for everybody.
But yeah.
So let's keep going here. So you have we had the little rafts, and then there was the Mark II and the Mark IV.
Yeah. Now these are interesting. These are plain personnel boats, and they're nothing more than personnel transport boats that the Navy used to take personnel either from ship to ship or from ship to shore and back. And they were actually constructed like a boat. They had a helm station. They had a foldable windshield that would fold down flat so they could stack them on top to transport. And this particular boat I have got well documented in the archives, and the book shows it, that all these government photos that were taken of the boat under construction at the plant, and as well as the construction details and the blueprints. And there's a great display that I take on the traveling museum that's at the Cleveland Show every year, and one of the big display cases that shows a beautiful 6-foot plan profile print of the 24-foot plain personnel boat, and a lot of the all these photos are in it, plus the actual government contract is on a display. And when I cleaned out the factory, I found one of the wheels that went on these boats up in the attic.
No, one of the helm wheels.
One of the helm wheels, which is maple and brass, with the original tag on it. So that's kind of interesting, and that's in the display too.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And these things had a big old Chrysler crown in them.
Do you remember how many of those they made?
Yeah, yes I do. 35 of the Mark II and 10 of the Mark IV. And I don't think there was much difference between them. They were a little over 24 foot and 7.5 foot beam, 25 mile an hour with a crew of 2, and they were designed with seating for up to 14, which is a lot of people for a 24 foot. But I imagine with just bench seats in the back, I believe, is what I saw in the one. But there's a good picture in the book on page 72 of the helm station. So, but again, no frills, battleship gray, and the faster the better.
And do we know where in what theater these were used at?
No, I think the only thing they're listed in the hall records, but it runs in my mind that they were just I don't know if they were listed what depot they went to, but they just went to a depot somewhere and then, dispersed.
Yeah.
I would think that. Well, I don't know. I mean, we're closer to the East Coast than we are to the West Coast, so whether they went to the European theater or the Pacific theater, I don't know.
All right.
No, I do know that one of the next ones we're going to talk about.
The one for the Royal Navy.
Well, that one. But while we're on the subject of whether it's East Coast or West Coast, they did make a little 17-foot line handling boat, and it was just a little 17-foot inboard with a center-mounted rudder. And all it was designed to do was take the lines from the big ships
To the shore.
to the shore.
Yeah.
Instead of
Throwing a monkey's fist.
yeah. So, and I remember a friend of my uncle, Mouse Myers, was in the Navy in San Diego, and he operated one of these. And he said he had a picture somewhere, and he died, and I never got my hands on that picture. But he used to operate one, and he said the things were so nice to handle. He said they would actually turn within their own length. They'd actually do a circle.
So the rudder was center
mounted.
midships.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. You see a lot of ski boats have that.
Yeah.
But and again, those are plywood. It probably had a small 4-cylinder engine in them, but I know some of those made them out to San Diego, so possibly some of these were shipped out to the Pacific Theater.
They might have been in both. They might have moved as the war effort moved. Who knows?
Well, right, yeah. But then in the records there were some sailing dinghies that the U.S. Navy ordered during the war. Now I don't know what they would.
Well, we can only speculate what they were using to sail. Maybe it was for training.
Possibly, but I don't know if I've got any plans or any contracts. But I either remember reading about it or seeing in the hall records.
Maybe they went to Annapolis. There's like
They could have
a cadet.
Like I said, the paper archives is so massive that there's stuff in there I've never seen yet. It's just that I've taken some of this stuff for the traveling museum, but eventually it'll all come to the light of day, and probably all these pieces will be put back together.
And we'll know what the sail dinghies were for. Maybe there was just some admiral who wanted to have a race. Who knows?
Just for officers' pleasure. I mean, stranger things have happened. You're an officer,
Yeah, those back in those days, they got away with a lot more than we do now. So I could see that.
But you were asking about the 36-foot
the Royal Navy, the Royal Navy boat.
Well, Tony had mentioned to me about that particular boat, and then I found an ad in a magazine, and lo and behold, Lyman Boat Works, 1550 First Street, and it's showing one of those patrol boats. And I don't think they made many of those. Probably, I don't know, just a handful. But then somewhere we were reading about it intended for the Royal Navy under the Land Lease Act.
Yeah, so those ones probably did go to Europe.
No, I'm sure. But it'd be nice to have seen one of those. Pretty nice lines from the ad. I remember I was.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a wartime patrol boat. It looks more like I'm taking dignitaries out on a cruise boat.
Well, whatever. I wish I could. The reason the picture's so small in the book is it just could not scan it. It was a magazine ad. So, but at least I got a picture of it. So if we don't have a picture of the dinghy or the, I do have I did find an ad after I published the book that had a picture of the storm boat in it. with the 60 horse Alto 460 quad. That you were asking me about those boats.
Yeah, so those were like beach storming boats.
Correct, assault beach assault boats.
Beach assault boats. They were smaller, right? Like 17 foot, 18 foot.
Actually, they're 16 foot.
16 foot. That's
and,
right. With the 50 on it, or was it a 60?
60.
60 horsepower outboard.
Yeah, big
That thing's
Alto.
moving.
Well, yeah, but you're trying to stuff 15 guys in it too. That's a little overloaded.
Yeah, you don't not much freeboard there going through the surf.
But I did find an ad, showed a picture of that, but it was too late to get it in the book. But that was late in the conflict, and even the government contract stated that any additional plans required for the development, design, and construction of the boat shall be prepared by the contractor. So Bill Lyman was starting to redesign this model for the government late in the war effort, because that was his forte, were outboards. But the war ended, and it'd be nice to find, and I'm sure that I'll probably come across some drawings down the road of his redesign or prototype of the storm boat. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because there's just thousands and thousands of blueprints, original vellums, ammonia prints that I haven't even seen yet.
Wow.
So that'd be an interesting one to come upon. So.
And how many of those do they make? Is there some number to that, or we not know?
It just stated a few were constructed. I could probably go through the records and count them, because they did keep records similar on the ledger sheets, the same way they documented the pre-war construction, which was basically on a ledger sheet as they came off the line. So, and I know during 42, 43, 40, early 44, same thing, all the war boats. So I probably could go through there and count them.
Now, did they designate in the serial number war effort boats? Did they change something?
I'm sure they were serial numbered, but they were also designated what they were. I know they're marked 33-foot plane rearming and 24-foot plane personnel. I remember reading that. So
there may be a few other ones mixed in the bag here that's still discoverable.
Yeah. But those are the ones that are documented. And then they also helped Matthews in construction of one of their landing craft that they built, which was a landing craft vehicle personnel, an LCVP, which was all wood, and they would subcontract some of the smaller parts to Lyman, because they were close, Port Clinton to Sandusky. And
so yeah, Matthews is this landing craft. Do you remember the specifications on that as far as the size?
It's 36 foot.
36 foot.
Yeah,
so it's pretty good sized landing craft.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as big as the Higgins or the Huckins, but it's light vehicle personnel. So you're talking Jeep and troops. Where's that? Well, actually, the Huggins and the Higgins are like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of the one on Put-in Bay, the fuel barge. It's
that was an LST.
Yeah, it's an LST.
Yeah.
But that thing's not more than 30, 40 foot long.
That thing's still over there?
Yeah. I actually have a picture of it sitting on grounded, because all the water blew out of when we had a really bad wind.
That's a steel boat.
It's a steel boat, but it's at the dock, and it's sitting in the bottom. It's really interesting.
Was it World War II?
Yeah. It's a pretty interesting vessel, and they does all the fuel over there. So there's two ways to get fuel to the island. You have to put a fuel truck on the ferry, or or the barge, and the barge does a
Yeah,
lion's
I
share
remember
of the
they
fuel.
used to dock that at the Doler dock where the boardwalk sits right now.
Oh, that's where it used to be.
Yeah.
Now it's just up from there at the Miller dock.
Right.
Yeah.
But that Doler dock, the boardwalk, was actually just a vacant dock. That's where the steamships used to come in.
I want to say the name is called the Cantankerous. I believe,
I
it's
believe
called
it
the,
is.
the Cantankerous. Yeah.
But
Another recreation of World War II stuff, still in operation today. Interesting.
it is very.
And I think they have a big duck boat over there too. Have you seen that thing on Kelly's Island?
No.
It's like a really big duck boat.
Well, it might be there were two of them back here off of Church Road that went up for auction.
Really?
Two of them. One of them ran.
Yeah, big gray looking things, giant flat deck, huge tires. I mean, they're like this tall.
Yeah, single 6-cylinder gray in it.
Yeah,
ran
it looked like they're like a giant duck boat. And I was like, I would not want to be driving in this thing across the water. But so there we go. Let's see where we're at here. I think the landing craft was the last one in the chapter you kind of addressed.
That was it. Yeah, I don't know if you want to go back and review any of the. There's one nice shot on page 68 where they're Bill Lyman and Fred Wien are accepting an award from the government. It's a sponsorship award for their work on the plane rearming boat.
So I know we're kind of going to the book, and you can talk about these pictures. Just again, your book's still available, right? Can people still get a copy?
Yeah, there's a few left. There's a few left online, and I've got just a handful of the limited editions. They'd have to call me for those, but the other ones you can still get online. Like I said, I've got a handful left, unless I go into a fifth printing, which I might.
So, and if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you on the website?
Either email me from the website or order online, and from the catalog at lymanboat.com.
So lymanboats.com.
Correct. But
and book's still available, limited time. Hurry up and order your second or third one now.
No, there's I want to say 6 or 8 of the limited editions. The first 200 books I had printed were embossed limited edition, and they're stamped and numbered.
Wow.
Of course, all of them are signed, but there's still some of those left. But
and are you going to be signing books this afternoon anywhere?
No,
not
unless somebody brings one up. I did sign a couple at the
rodeo, the roundup.
At the roundup, and we might as well plug that again since we have a little extra time this morning. Marblehead Estates is going to be doing that again next year for the 3rd annual.
Yeah, big shout out to Marblehead Estates. Thank you guys.
Thanks a lot for helping preserve the legacy, and special thanks to Courtney, one of the managers over there, and Chris Bunzy, who ramrods the show with her. They both do a great job in helping to preserve the Lyman legacy, preserve the history. And we're going to have, as soon as we get through the final 2 chapters, we're going to start having some special guests come in and talk. I'll go through the tooling aspect. We'll probably do a segment one night on the transportation of everything, how I got everything from the plant down to my shop, and the tedious long process that took, and all the people that were helping, and it was quite a monumental effort to save the archives. So we'll have some of those people in. We'll have Chris Hammond in one evening. We're gonna have Pat Dietrich in one evening, and we'll keep it interesting. Any and all things Lyman.
And some general wood boat stuff. I think we talked about doing a galvanic corrosion episode, hierarchy of metals, fasteners.
Well, yeah, and another. I'll probably get Greg Group in here one night. He can talk about that erosion situation because he's been surveying boats for over 40 years.
Yeah, that'd be a
Wood,
great
wood,
asset.
Yeah, wood, fiberglass, steel, freighters. So he's seen it all. He'd be
I'd like to do the how-to on checking that your neighbor is not causing your own boat problems.
exactly. Just
That's
get
a
polarity.
that's a good one to know.
Oh yeah, because I had that problem here years ago, and all of a sudden my rudder's starting to.
You pull it out of the water. Where'd my rudder go?
And it's just all about polarity.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Well, it's almost brunch.
Brunch time?
It's brunch time. Brunch
That's
time.
right. You got quiche going up here, don't you?
I got quiche on the Traeger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 quiches on the Traeger. Just I'll pull them off here, have brunch, and then we're gonna be enjoying the lake the rest of the day.
Yep. Well, what this is going to be broadcast? Next Thursday night, isn't it? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we encourage everybody to email in your questions or comments. Let us know how we're doing. Please subscribe.
Subscribe, like.
Yep. View. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. Tell your family.
Oh, and if you have family pictures of Lyman with a story you'd like to tell behind it.
Oh, that's right. We're gonna figure that out.
If you can,
Richard sent in his. Now we
yeah.
gotta figure out how to post them.
Yeah, that we can share those. That's pretty cool.
Why don't they can post them with the chat?
We'll get Nate in here and help figure some of that out.
Yeah.
If anything, we could post them on Facebook page and share a story, or even pull them up in here on the stream and show a picture and tell the
I
story.
would think if we can get our mush on the stream, we ought to be able to get a picture on there somehow.
For sure. Yeah.
This side of holding up in front of the camera.
It would work.
But yeah, I think we pretty well covered the war effort, and it definitely helped Bill Lyman come out of the war and get a jump on everybody in the small boat market. I mean, he was Johnny on the spot come 1945, 46. And we'll see where that leads. In the next segment, we'll go into that mass production and give you some astounding numbers in the early to mid 50s of the amount of plywood they went through and the amount of boats that they built in 1 year. I mean, we're talking 5,000 boats in 365 days. Now, granted, the majority of them are 13 and 15 foot outboards, but still, you start doing the math, it's unbelievable. And I believe,
Yeah, good stuff.
yeah, I think I believe Tony. I was asking Tony, how many people does it really have working there? And he always said he can't remember over 300, 350.
So did they work nights too, or was it? I was at the question about that during the war. Were they 24 hours on the clock, or were they working like 12s or 18s, or?
I have no idea. I imagine during the war everybody was working overtime. Now whether they were working around the clock, everybody's working overtime. We couldn't have produced this kind of stuff.
No, I was always curious on that one. If they were working 24 hours a day.
Wouldn't surprise me. Or at least, 2 long shifts.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that in the next episode. That'll be podcast number 5, and we're putting podcast number 4 to bed right now.
Yep.
And we will see you. This is going to air. Do we have our dates?
Oh, this is. I don't want to say next Thursday's date off the top of my head, but I don't know.
But anyhow, the following Thursday after that, we'll be live Thursday night.
Or it might be Friday night.
Might be Friday.
Friday night. But stay tuned. We'll put that on the
Oh yeah.
on the Facebook page.
Yeah, we'll post this in what night, what date, what time.
Yeah.
Everybody sees.
My beard will be gone.
Yeah.
Clean shaven again.
Yeah. All right, Andy. Good talking to you again, and get up there and eat your quiche, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. See you all next time.
Bye, folks.
Bye.